This is Alistair Weaver for Edmunds. Now, when you think about the rich history of the Mercedes SL, you might think about the beautiful Gullwing, the 190 SL, some of those beautiful cars in history. So when the last generation was launched, everyone couldn't quite believe just how ugly it was. Well, this is the facelifted variant, and Mercedes worked hard to redefine the nose to make it prettier, which they've achieved, but only to a point. Sadly, that's just about all they've done to the styling, because if you follow me quickly to the rear, you'll see that the bulbous overhang and these fairly ugly rear lights are still present and correct. There is some fabulous engineering. Just take a look at this. The kinematics of this is just incredible. The only thing I would say though is what happens in 20 years' time. Imagine trying to fix that. Inside, not much has changed, although this infotainment screen is marginally bigger. To be honest, we're still far from convinced that the quality and the style is worthy of a car costing over $100,000. Check out this slightly chintzy fascia insert, for example, or these rather wobbly plastic switches. Compare this with the beautiful interior of a contemporary S-Class or even the C-Class, and I'm sorry, the SL is just not good enough. This new SL 450 debuts with the facelifted range and features a V6 turbo developing 362 horsepower, or you can trade up from there all the way to 621 horsepower in the SL 65 AMG with its twin turbo V12. That's cost the best part of $250,000 and is a car for you if you've got more money than sense. To be honest, we're not a big fan of the SL, and if we had this kind of money to spend on a Mercedes, we'd actually be putting it here on the rather lovely and rather beautiful Mercedes S-Class convertible.
This is the Mercedes-Benz SLC, and if it kind of looks like the SLK, that's because it's the new SLK. Mercedes is, aligning the names of all their cars along a similar theme, where this would align in the coupe convertible world where the C-Class sits in the sedan world. Like the E-Class sits in the sedan world, there's the GLE. So that's why the naming structure has changed. But there's also some updates. So this has two engine choices. The SLC has a turbocharged 4-cylinder that does 241 horsepower. This SLC 43 has a 3-liter V6, never mind what the numbers on the badge say, it's actually a 3-liter twin-turbo V6 that has 362 horsepower. It's rear drive, it has a 9-speed automatic. Yes, we have 9 forward gears in these cars now. A couple other nice features is it is a hardtop convertible, but the roof will shut up at speeds, open and shut at speeds at up to 25 miles an hour. There's also a trunk partition that works automatically. So when you have the trunk partition up, you hit the drop top button, it automatically moves down if there's no luggage in the way, and the roof can stow. But let's take a look inside. Here we are inside the SLC 43. I have the roof shut to give us a little bit more quiet because these auto shows can be pretty busy. The dash and the display gives a very, strong AMG vibe, as you can tell by this carbon fiber look dash on the material on the dash here, and the way the shifter looks. It's a cute little guy, but it evokes some pretty important AMGs in the past, like the CLK Black series had a very small shifter like that, and also the AMG GT and the SLS have similarly styled, oddly tiny shift levers, which is pretty funny. 2 analog gauges with a digital display in the center. We're seeing that a lot. And then also you have your display right here. This is one of the smaller displays, it looks like. I believe there's an optional larger display in here, but it is kind of small by today's standards, especially in a vehicle of this luxury orientation. Here are your typical controls, very Mercedes-like the way it looks. If you've been in a new Benz recently, or even an older one, you'll recognize this layout and all that. 2 cup holders right there, fairly standard stuff. Your roof control is right here under this guy, which also doubles as a nice armrest for when you rest your hand on here and when you control that knob. And then underneath this, if we can open it, underneath this center cubby hole here, we have 2 USB outlets and a 12-volt cigarette. Oop, I think I just broke it. Yep, I just broke it. Oops. But that's where your 12-volt plug would go. Oopsies. We'll leave that there and tell somebody. But otherwise, the layout's really nice. I love the red contrast stitching and the red seat belts. And these air vents are also really nice too, because the way they control me, just grab it, turn it the way you want to go, and that's how you open it and shut it too. Really nice in terms of design. To find out more about the SLC43, be sure to visit Edmunds.com. Behind me is the first version of the new Mercedes-Benz E-Class that will arrive to the US. It is the E300, and it's called that because it uses a 2-liter, 241 horsepower turbocharged inline-4. Now you may think 300, 2-liter, what's the relationship? And there isn't really any anymore. Mercedes gave that up a long time ago. But let's not dwell on that, because I'm sure there will be a bunch of other drivetrain options in the near future. A twin-turbo 3-liter V6. We could probably expect to see some variation of a high-performance V8. There will probably be a diesel as well, a hybrid, and on and on and on. The list goes on and on. But big news about the E-Class is that it is much bigger, a lot longer. 2.5 inches, 2.3 inches or so, maybe 2.8 inches, I forget exactly. But it is a significant increase in length. That probably benefits the interior space quite a bit. Exterior design is typical for Mercedes, a little muted, a little subdued, but that's kind of what you expect when you get a luxury car of this size. There is a lot of interesting technology inside though, from adaptive cruise control and autonomous driving features and parking assist and steering assist, and we'll take a look at some of those next when we hop inside. Inside the new E-Class, this is the E300, and you see a lot of S-Class design cues. Mercedes has worked really hard in making the design of the interiors of the entire lineup look consistent from car to car. And it really comes together in pretty much every car they've done so far, both the C-Class, E-Class, everything, all the cars look very nice inside, taking the S-Class design cues. The instrument cluster is a full digital, LCD display, which looks very nice if we can keep it on because we're at the show, with multi-configurable, a lot of adjustability in the way it looks, and it looks nice and clean as well. The materials in here are gorgeous. The way this this dull flat wood looks, this burgundy leather, it looks very nice. Large display on the infotainment here. Storage area there with a power port for your USB, and it looks like a rubberized mat that may be for inductive charging, or it may just be like a nice mat to keep your valuables still. This uses Mercedes Command infotainment system, which works pretty good. We've had good experiences with it, although there might be a little bit easier to use variants in the segment. Controls are down here. For a lot of that, this is a touch feedback. It works. You can swipe controls left and right. As I swipe on that, you can see I'm controlling stuff on here. You swipe your finger on that to control this. You also have a dial down here to control it. We kind of like having redundant controls, so you can choose the one that you want to use and not be forced to use something that you don't like. As you can see, though, the material attracts a lot of fingerprint dust and oil, which might be kind of a bummer. These piano black interiors tend to do that. Tech features are abundant in this car. You have all sorts of collision avoidance and mitigation features, adaptive cruise and steering assist, and so on, and the options keep going on and on. One other cool thing about this car is that air suspension is available, and that's kind of a first for this segment. And what also is cool is I just noticed these are responsive too. You can swipe your fingers on them and it makes controls. You can also, looks like tapping them isn't going to do it. It's all going to be swipe controls, which is really interesting. Next, we'll hop in the back seat. And as we can see from the back seat, the dash just looks very, very attractive. It's really hard to get over how nice this interior looks. And when you're buying a luxury car, that's really what's important. It's when you hop in the car, you get sort of refreshed by the luxuriousness of the experience, and this car delivers on that for sure. Down here you have rear air controls and vents, which is really nice, and then another storage compartment down here with a 12-volt power plug. Unfortunately, I don't see any USB ports down here, which is kind of a bummer or disappointing, but you know, you'll make do. Rear seat space is very good. My head is not touching the ceiling. I have plenty of room above me. My knees are not touching the seat in front of me. Lots of space. It is very comfortable. This model also has 2 sunroofs right here on the top, which is nice and easy to see. And then the seat material and stuff is very comfortable. Very nicely executed interior by Mercedes. find out more about the Mercedes-Benz E300 and other upcoming E-Class models, be sure to visit Edmunds.com.